Good morning, gearheads, and welcome to Speed City F1. And we just watched maybe the most dramatic F1 qualifying session ever in Azerbaijan. This is Jon Massengale, and I'm joined by Bob Varsha and Jonathan Green, and Chris Medland will be with us later. But Bob, I'm going to start with you. This was the craziest qualifying session I've ever experienced.
In what has been one of the most entertaining Formula One seasons in many years. And yes, I know McLaren has been dominant, winning 12 of the 16 races thus far. Seven 1-2 finishes and podium finishes in every race except one. I mean, they've been dominant. All they need to do today to defend their Constructors' Championship is take 9 points off of Ferrari. No big deal, right? Well, then things went awry beginning on Friday when McLaren was basically nowhere in the top five teams and Ferrari was 1-2. Lewis Hamilton was practically jumping up and down with his joy at the way the car was performing, yada, yada, yada. And then come qualifying with, 6-7 drivers capable of pole position based on Friday and Saturday practice. And what happens? We wind up with two drivers going for pole. That was the Lando Norris and, of course, Max Verstappen. And what happens? Crash out. Norris in the fence, Leclerc in the fence, on and on and on. I mean, it was phenomenal. A record 6 red flags in qualifying. First time that's happened in the years that this qualifying formula has been in place. I mean, it was just crazy.
Crazy. Well, Jonathan Green, I know you're up at VIR this weekend and joining us from the media center there, but this is crazy. How much did you get to watch?
Most of it. I actually, it was funny because it was 2 hours long. We were on the way to the track, and so I watched the first sort of qualifying session at the hotel, and then listened to it on the radio. Then got to the track, and now I'm here. We're just starting out here for the day, but yeah, absolutely incredible, and just some great stories up and down the track. I was so hopeful for Carlos Sainz. That would have been a fantastic story.
I know,
you bet.
But what about, I mean, Carlos Sainz, yes, there's so many, but what about Liam Lawson?
Yeah, I mean,
yes,
he improved his position.
He's had a monkey on each shoulder for the last year or so, as it were, and performances like that, which I think, even the commentary said it, he did it on merit. It was, the conditions were odd, but he improved to that front row initially. From his previous time. So there was no sort of, he got lucky, or RB got a lucky weather, no. I was surprised that the jeopardy wasn't worse for Piastri, because when he hit the wall, I was like, wow, this could really upend the whole championship. But as it turns out, he really doesn't lose much. He loses a place or two.
Yeah. And I thought for a while it looked like the Racing Bulls might start 2 of the top 5, perhaps, before Isaac Hadjar fell down the order a little bit. But yikes, I got to admit, I was pulling so hard for Carlos Sainz to take that pole. And it came down to one lap by the master, Max Verstappen, to keep him from that goal. But still, front row start could be fun.
Yeah, they said it had been the last Williams pole was 2014, and the last time, if Lawson had stayed on the front row, 1973, the last time a New Zealander was on the front row.
That's hilarious.
So yeah, I was thinking that this might be the craziest dry session ever, about 90 minutes in, but with the rain, it's just really incredible. So a full 2 hours of qualifying this morning, and I mean, there's so many crazy things that happened that the last 2 or 3 minutes, those laps with Lando's laps and I mean, it was all just amazing. And Lawson going up there, the last 2 or 3 minutes may have been the most dramatic we've had the entire year.
Yeah, absolutely.
You got to think that Lando was thinking, this is my chance. This is my chance. If I can pull this off and take the pole, and Piastri stuck in the wall, that this is my only chance. And I think that's why he went for it. I mean, he even tapped the wall at one point. It was a masterful lap. That was no holds barred.
Well, and I don't know about you guys, but when the rain, when we knew there was still rain on the track, and knew the track was still damp, and we were down to those last few laps, I honestly just went, Max is going to take this. That's what I was saying. Were you guys saying the same thing?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
So, well, he also had the newer tires, so if he kept it on the island, he was going to get the pole.
Yeah, in many ways, tires were the story of this qualifying. A lot of teams ran out when the final the final 3 or 4 minutes of Q3 happened. You look down the row of cars, and half of them had used tires on them.
Yeah,
scuffs, as we say.
Yeah, Liam Lawson, by the way, did the most laps. Speaking of tires, he ended up doing 26 laps to 23 apiece for both Verstappen and Sainz. And Antonelli, what a great showing for him. He was in danger of not even making it through to Q2 because of the timing of things. Yeah,
he walked the tightrope all day. And, you know, it's exciting when guys get out of shape. And there were countless times, you know, that guys were getting snaps of oversteer. And then, of course, we had drops of rain out there on the course and a big wind from behind. And several drivers complained that they hadn't braked late. They just got a gust of wind from behind. I live in a high rise here in Atlanta and have for the last 15 years. And what you learn is when the air moves through the cityscape, with tall buildings close together, what you get is a wind tunnel, you know, all that air shoving through the width of a boulevard. And I'm constantly amazed by how much these Formula One cars are affected by a gust of wind. It's just amazing. You said tires, this may be the story, but maybe wind may be the story of this session, because it's funny. I wrote down at the top of my notes, wind, or, you know, exclamation, and then rain, question mark, before the qualifying even started. But I think the wind may have been the biggest factor in all of these brushes with the wall and the crashes and the red flags.
I couldn't agree more. You know, you watch somebody like Hulkenberg, you know, and Bortoletto. I mean, you know, there was, over that 2 hours, there were accidents that looked like, you know, mistakes by drivers. But let's be honest, these guys don't really make that many mistakes. So each and every one of those would have had a factor. In fact, you heard on the radio, what was that? My brakes have gone. No, gust of wind from behind. You know, every time they said it, you got to understand that it was actually Mother Nature that was forcing them to do things, or forcing the car to do things it shouldn't be doing.
All right, guys, a couple of times, Dirk. Oh, go ahead.
Let's get a quick break in. And when we come back, we'll continue to talk about this amazing qualifying at Azerbaijan this morning. All right, let's jump on YouTube. I don't even have YouTube up, guys. Sorry. Let's see what's going on over there. I want to see how excited everybody is.
So, John, how long are we on for?
We're probably just going to go the full hour. Chris is going to try to join us. So
I'm going to have to bounce off in about 20 minutes.
Okay. All right, let's see who's on YouTube here. All right. There's T&W, Tim, Kevin Kelly. Holy crap. KK says he's been up since 3 a.m. He said, I'm having a beer now.
Well, I think, actually, to be honest, a qualifying section like that's enough to deserve a beer.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, that was crazy. Todd Dauber, 2 poles in a row. Can Max make it 2 wins, or is he out of mediums? That's a good question. Wow. This is Danny A says should be an exciting race day. Absolutely, man. We got to look at how this order. I haven't even absorbed the entire order yet. See where everybody is.
There's great news there. You know, listen to this lineup: Norris, Piastri, Leclerc, Alonso, Hamilton. You'd think that would be, you know, rows
that's
1
top
through
5,
3.
right?
Yeah, right. Yeah, you start with Norris in 7th, and all the rest of those champions that I mentioned are behind him.
Yeah, that is interesting. Yeah,
it really is amazing.
Andy P says, I've said it before, Baku is the F1 equivalent of Talladega, more often than not a wild card. That's great. Oh, wow. He's vouching for Kevin Kelly. He said they were both up. Man, this is crazy. This is going to be fun to talk about.
Yeah.
All right, here we go.
Hi, this is Max Verstappen, and you're listening to Speed City.
Welcome back to the fastest hour in radio, Speed City.
Thank you, Max Verstappen, for bringing us back, and congratulations on your pole position, second in a row. What a qualifying session we got to see in Azerbaijan with the wind and the rain and the brushes with the wall, the crashes. I mean, 6 red flags, a record. It was just incredible, but we got a lot to talk about. Obviously, Max Verstappen on pole, but Carlos Sainz missed out on his pole. We were all rooting for him. Liam Lawson, we talked about him. Kimi Antonelli in 4th and George Russell in 5th. And George Russell, did you guys hear him? You know, Chris actually had an interview scheduled with Russell that he had to cancel. Did you guys hear his voice on the radio? He's clearly sick.
Oh, George Russell, who came into the weekend, missed all of his Thursday media appointments. And that happens, once or twice a year to some driver in the field. But Russell's becoming a big factor in the position of the teams in the Constructors' Championships. And I agree, he did not sound healthy. Yeah. And this is not an easy track, even in the best of health, with all of these 90-degree turns, with the wind today, with the rain. We mentioned tires were a big story in this session. And nobody had any left at the end. That's because there were so many stoppages and teams opted for a fresh set. We're not going to need these anymore. And then we had 6 red flags. So kudos to the Red Bull team, because they sent Verstappen out for that crucial last 3 minutes plus of the session on a fresh set of the softest, grippiest tires. Great planning or just dumb luck, whatever it was, really worked out for Magic Max.
Well, I want to talk about the championship now. When Piastri crashed, there was this huge opportunity for Lando Norris, and that lap, that really started the incredible drama at the very end of qualifying when he was basically brushing the barriers on every single turn. Jonathan, I mean, that was amazing to watch, but I really expected him to be higher up the order. And maybe it was like Bob was saying, he didn't have the tires. I'm not sure where he was in the tire cycle, but
I think he lost out a lot when he banged into 15. No question. Mm-hmm. And he was running on faith. There's no question, because he just doesn't, there's no way he could have predicted the conditions around each and every corner. Because no one could. And, I think having those softer tires that Max had gave him a little bit of an advantage in that he'd get more grip. But watching Lando, you could tell he was on a lap that was send it or go home.
Yeah. Of course, Lando qualified 7th and Piastri in 9th. But, of course, right behind Piastri, Leclerc, who ended his streak of 4 in a row poles. But Leclerc, with his crash, he hit the wall really hard that last one, but also
pretty Q2, straight on.
Yeah, pretty straight on. That's right, Bob. In fact, I wondered about, obviously that's where the Hans device takes over, but I wondered if it was, impactful enough to affect him physically. But did you guys notice in Q2 when Leclerc hit the wall, he hit the wall, exactly like Behrman, and hit it really hard, who took a chunk out of the wall and put him out of the race, out of qualifying. But Leclerc hit it about the same, and his Ferrari held up. So I thought that was interesting, too, that his car appeared to be stronger than the Haas.
Yeah, I guess if you're going to crash at a place like Baku, it's best to go straight in, because otherwise you get sideways and the car snaps in every direction, and you do damage between 2 and 4 corners on the car. So it's rough.
Yeah, we saw Hülkenberg do that, and he went straight in and snapped off the front wing and turn it into multiple pieces, but then went in and was able to, get back going again.
Out.
Mm-hmm. Jonathan, about what?
Me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I just spare a thought for Albon, because if you remember in Q1, he was one of the first guys to take a flyer, and it was an impressive lap. And, it makes you think just what could have been. And that was a simple mistake his as well, and probably wouldn't assisted. But, Williams were really looking good. And I think Goldblum would have been right up there with Sainz, if not, faster.
And I think Williams was really looking forward to this race because they thought, this is the sweet spot for our car. We're fast in a straight line. We've improved the cornering. This will be great. And then Albon crashes out in Q1. I mean, look at Carlos Sainz, what he did. That tells you what this car can do around this track. And it's tough. Albon has no luck here at all. Remember last year's race when they sent him from his pit stop with some of the engine cooling
that's right.
plumbing over the driver's head.
Well, but you know what, Bob, he didn't have luck last year, but this year that was all him. I mean, that was not that was pretty much just a driver error. And but yeah, and I was looking at the timing. I was thinking, okay, when we got through with Q1, I couldn't believe that it was 40 minutes. But if you average it out, all three were 40 minutes. There was 3 40-minute sessions, so 2 hours of qualifying. But man, it was just amazing. And now the fact that Max has now won more pole positions than anybody this year. Did you guys see that?
No, I didn't know that.
He has the most poles this year now. So crazy considering where he is in the Drivers' Championship and considering the car that he's had.
See, that reminds me of when Senna was underpowered or not having the best car, but still would get the pole. He'd be nowhere in the race, but he just was able to one lap it every time, and we'd all say, "Oh, that was typical Senna," but he's not going to keep this up for the race. I remember that well. But if Verstappen's managed to kind of continue, and I agree with the commentators. I think Max knows what's behind him and can just go off into the distance if he plays his cards right.
Yeah, that'll be big for him. Certainly big for the battle between Red Bull and Mercedes for third place in the Constructors' Championship. When guys like, pick one, Piastri, the championship leader, the commentators were saying, you never see Piastri do something like that. Go all the way back to the first race of the season in Australia. He was in a potentially dominating position, and he skittered off at the final penultimate corner, I should say. And that ruined his day, but he never makes mistakes like that, except when he does. Pretty amazing stuff. And Leclerc, 4 straight poles coming in, wham, right into the wall. I mean, this just is something that does not happen to these guys, especially the qualifying masters like Verstappen and Leclerc and, pick one, Piastri, Norris.
I think this just comes back down to the wind. I mean, because the wind adds that wild card of inconsistency. And did you see Ocon? He had a tree branch in his car somewhere, and there were leaves all over the track.
It makes me think about, and we haven't had it yet, but it makes me think about Las Vegas and whether because we remember we run at night, so the wind is less likely to be up at that time of night. But if we did have a windy night earlier in Vegas, you could see some similar results because it's a similar situation.
Yeah, it's a good point.
Yeah, I mean, occasionally what we call B-roll shots of the crowd in certain situations, particularly red flags, you could see people up in the grandstand all bundled up and their hair is blowing all over the place. And then, in another corner, people would be wearing T-shirts and holding up their signs and, having a nice sunny afternoon in Baku. So, it was very unpredictable. But when it got you in its clutches, the wind and the rain and the combination of all of them could do you in a heartbeat. That just shows you what a high wire these guys work under.
Yeah, well, let me just run down the entire qualifying, finishing with Max Verstappen, Carlos Sainz, Liam Lawson, Antonelli, followed by George Russell, Tsunoda, Norris, Hadjar in 8th, Piastri in 9th, Leclerc in 10th, Alonso in 11th, Hamilton, Bortoletto, Stroll, Behrman, Colapinto, Hulkenberg, Ocon, Gasly, and Albon. So a lot of surprises there, obviously, a lot of out of order. Lewis Hamilton kind of went into this weekend with high hopes, or at least, I don't know, I did for him, just because the Ferrari, but he's not happy in 12th.
Yeah,
Oh, no.
he had brake issues and was nowhere in free practice 1, and then on Saturdays or late Friday, free practice 2, he said the brakes are now perfect on a circuit where your brakes are critical.
Yeah.
And let's go. Thank the Lord. We're going to go have a great race. Nope. Day to day, it just didn't work out for him. Not because they changed the car, but because of the weather change.
Yep. And it's funny when the first lap out of the box for Leclerc, he was fastest for everybody, and I thought, man, Leclerc is going to, do it again. He's going to get 4 or 5 in a row now, and maybe even set him up for the first win of the season for Ferrari. But man, it is it is not where they want to be with 10th and 12th. But I want to step back and talk about Liam Lawson's lap, because we touched on it at the beginning, but I mean, the fact that he did that on merit and puts himself on the second row in P3. I mean, Jonathan, what a turnaround from the beginning of the year for Lawson, right? I mean, it's what a crazy year for him.
Absolutely, and it was interesting to see the body language. You could, like I said, he just had an air of "I belong here." The first guy to greet him was Verstappen, his old teammate, and it was a definite "Hey, good job today" type handshake.
Yeah.
And yeah, I do think that this has been a psychological roller coaster for us watching and for those having to go through it. And I'm talking Tsunoda, I'm talking Sainz in the last 2 years, I'm talking Hamilton this year, Lawson, Antonelli, and so on and so forth. So, I think, they've all kind of, and Norris, they've all kind of worn their heart on their sleeves. But I think Lawson has managed against all odds actually to keep his head, and Tsunoda's doing the same at the moment. And I'm, again, we haven't mentioned him, but Tsunoda doing a good job this weekend to stay within touching distance of Max. And I think it's going to be interesting to see what happens between all 4 of those Red Bull drivers tomorrow, as they battle through the traffic, because the story's not over. They haven't decided what they're doing next year. And each and every one of them is fighting for their seat that they currently have, if only to try to keep anybody else from getting it. Adjar has been talked about for Tsunoda's seat, et cetera, et cetera. But I think Lawson, especially today, has put down his marker to say, on merit, look, I know what it takes to do this and beat the other Red Bull.
All right,
I can master these conditions. Go ahead, John.
Chris Medland is going to try to join us. He's doing F1 TV today, but he sent us his thoughts immediately after. I'm really excited to hear this, because he sent his thoughts immediately after the qualifying ended and after we watched those last dramatic 2 minutes. So let's hear from Chris Medland now.
Guys, I don't think I've ever seen a qualifying session quite like that. And it took a long time in that session for me to realise that Carlos Sainz might be on pole. But midway through Q3, I suddenly thought it could happen. So close as well, until Verstappen pipped him at the end. But I must admit, being here on the ground and running around doing a lot of the TV stuff and commentary, which is one of the reasons I'm not live with you throughout this show, the wind is remarkable. It is so strong at times, and you can really feel it buffeting the grandstands, moving the commentary boxes. It is really tough, even just walking around and standing. So for the drivers out there, that will be so inconsistent, so difficult to handle, that's going to play a really big part in all of those mistakes we saw. But perhaps the biggest shock for me is the fact that Oscar Piastri was one of those mistakes and that he put it in the barrier. I've felt that he's really had the balance right so far in this season. The only thing that's really going to work for him now is the fact that Norris didn't take full advantage and didn't put it on the front row. What a grid we have for tomorrow. That is absolutely remarkable. And it's going to take something special, I think, actually to beat Verstappen from there, because the very quick cars, the ones you think would be threatening him, the McLarens and the Ferraris, are not in position to do so. So it's really given a big, big chance for Verstappen to go and make it back-to-back victories. And I don't want to say open up the title race again, but maybe?
Wow. Yeah, that's certainly.
It'll put positions at risk, particularly down into the midfield. And where drivers are in terms of, points scored this year. And a lot of drivers' contracts, as we all know, are based on points scored, bonus money there. Yeah, it is. It's phenomenal. Just when you thought you had it all figured out. And it brings out the fact that for as many disasters as this track and the conditions create, it's it's an open door for guys like Carlos Sainz and Liam Lawson and guys who, don't get a taste of those front 3 or 4 rows. Well, now they can move up because the real heavy hitters are, in the fence.
Yep. All right. Well, we got to take a quick break, and we'll continue to break down this super exciting qualifying we just watched. You're listening to Speed City F1. Back after these messages. Kevin Kelly on YouTube says, I'm too old for this. TW says, hit the like button. Thanks, Tim. Let's see. Carlos just 0.478 from Lucky Max. Dang it.
Which is a lot under the circumstances.
Actually, that's true. Yeah, it's true.
I tell you what, first question to Chris must be, what is the forecast wind-wise tomorrow, or weather-wise?
That's a really good question.
Because I think it's gonna, if it's like this, boy, we've got a lot to it. I'll start muting my mic, Casey. I realize it's too noisy.
Yeah, keep an eye on the chat, guys, so we can. Yeah, it's just that one time, Greeny. I don't know why. I guess it was just somebody nearby you there.
Yeah, they were. Yeah, there was somebody having a meeting right by my ear.
So is Logan Sargent in VIR this weekend?
Doing IMSA.
I think.
Yeah, he'd be at Indianapolis with.
That's right. That's right.
This is Trans Am and FRFL.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
How many races are you doing, Jonathan?
We've got 2 races. We've got one F4 and FR today, and then F4 and FR tomorrow. So 4 races in all. Two races for each category.
God, that's such a fun track.
Oh yeah, and the weather's fantastic. So
yep, not a lot of tall buildings around to turn into wind tunnels. That is as wide open as it gets.
Yeah.
We got some things to talk about. I want to talk about Ollie Behrman. I want to talk about that a little bit. Anything?
Colapinto's crash, I think, is worthy of thought. I mean, he really hit it. I thought he was going to do a barrel roll for a while.
All right, here we go.
Yeah, Alpine's worth talking about.
I'm George Russell, and you're listening to Speed City.
Welcome back to the fastest hour in radio, Speed City.
All right, welcome back. And when they're in the break, Bob Varsha said he wants to talk about Colapinto's crash. I'll give you my take on it, Bob, because Gasly he understeered and went long, right? And had to, he didn't hit the wall or anything. But I think Colapinto spotted him and was distracted by him, and that's why he went long and hit hard into the wall. It's my theory.
Well, you would think it would make him more cautious rather than less, unless he was being noble and thought, well, the team's really looking for a good result from me, so hang it all, I'm going to keep my foot down. But there were so many instances where that thing happened, and I think he was lucky to get away uninjured in that crash, because it was a big one. And it goes back to that business about you want to go straight into the wall or hit it a glancing blow, because I thought he was going to do a barrel roll at one point. He was really carrying speed into that corner.
Yeah, we saw so much of that today. We saw several drivers that I thought that was a really hard hit. I wrote that down I don't know how many times. And with the Tech Pro, the drivers probably felt a little bit emboldened that they could touch that, but then the parts where the wall, we saw that. And Greeny, I see you're muted, but I want to ask you the same thing. What do you, what was your take on the Colapinto crash first? We'll start with that.
Yeah, I think I actually agree with you. I think to a certain extent, probably distracted. But bigger picture, it's just another nail against Colapinto. We haven't talked about it much, but Alpine have not moved anywhere closer. Gasly obviously is driving well, but Alpine as a team just don't look competitive at all, which is a shame. And it really showed here this weekend. I mean, all right, mistakes, hitting the wall doesn't help. But it doesn't bode well for the future with Colapinto. We've been talking about how Lawson, and Sonoda put on a good show today, Hadjar included. But Colapinto hasn't had a decent weekend, well, since he got in the car, frankly.
Right. And we saw when he was with Williams last year, he crashed more than he should. But I wonder if it's a bit like a Red Bull situation between Verstappen and Tsunoda, or any of the other drivers who had this seat this year. I wonder if the lead driver, in this case, Pierre Gasly, gets a different car than a Colapinto, not in terms of, an inferior car, but he's driving a car that's set up for Gasly, where he needs something different, especially when you're in the red zone and just going like stink. You need a car that you understand and you have a lot of confidence in. I'm not saying that's a fact, but maybe we can get Chris to look into that.
Yeah, it's interesting. We spent a lot of time talking about how Red Bull and possibly the fall of Horner was because they created a car all towards Max, right?
Yep.
But we're forgetting, and I kind of had to remind myself, Bob, that's always been the way, is that the only way forward is to follow the direction of the superior driver, or if you want to call it the number one driver, right. Because otherwise you don't go forward. If you just keep giving equal material to everybody, then you can't compare it. So you can put a new floor, but you're going to put it on the number one car or the top driver.
Right.
See if it's working. And then you give it to the junior. And that's always been the way in Formula One. Now, like with McLaren, you have to pick carefully as who gets what. And there's probably an order to that. Or you give someone like Piastri a chance of a new wing or something. And he says, no, I'll stick with the old one. But I agree. I think Colapinto is stuck with whatever Gasly is choosing.
Yeah. Well, hey, I want to talk about Bortoleto, guys, because he has done, he's out-qualified one of the best qualifiers, right, in Hulkenberg this year. I think it's like 10-6, now 11-6
yes.
to Hulkenberg. And, Hulkenberg, had trouble again with his crash, like we talked about, or him rolling into the wall. But, and we don't know if that was a win thing, but still, you got to give Bortoleto credit again, out-qualifying Hulkenberg.
Yep. No question. But, I mean, in fairness, I think Bortoleto has already confirmed this year that he is the future for that team. And so it's kind of appropriate that he is, 100% leagues ahead of Nico. And as you mentioned, Nico is one of the best out there at qualifying. But, in Baku, as they say, expect the unexpected.
I tell you what's going to be interesting is actually Bortoleto is coming into his own just at the right time for the Audi takeover. And I think it's going to be a really interesting head-to-head between Hulkenberg and Bortoleto, because he's clearly improved this season. He's not got the better of Hulkenberg, but the Hulk's one of the best.
Yeah. And, you got to wonder whether the fact that Bortoleto's manager and advisor and the angel on his shoulder is Fernando Alonso. Yeah. Speaking of whom, do you see Alonso commented coming into this weekend that next year, if the car is good, the Aston Martin, he's probably going to call it a day at the end of the season, which is not the normal way this happens. Normally a superstar like him would get up and say, look, if this car doesn't get better, I'm out of here. Instead, he said, if this car is better, I'm out of here. If it's not better, then I'll probably come back because I have, business to do with Formula One. I want a good car, good results, good position in the championship, and leave on a high note. And while we're on the subject of Aston Martin, you see that this weekend, Aston Martin's two drivers, Alonso and Stroll, will be the first driver pairing in Formula One history to have 600 starts between them. That's amazing when you consider that, Jackie Stewart did 99 career starts. And Fangio did 54 and so on. Yeah. These numbers are crazy.
It also bodes well listening to you. I'm always thinking about Jack Crawford because he's still, an asset of Aston Martin, and he may get a chance with Cadillac at some point, but his obvious route to F1 is with Aston Martin at the moment. And if that becomes a truth that he's going to get out after the end of next year, I mean, Jack would be in the perfect position.
Well,
and he got a pole this weekend.
Yeah, and he ended up P4 after that. He got the pole, but ended up P4, and this is in the sprint race. So he's still in the hunt on this. He's lost ground in the championship hunt a little bit, but like currently he's down to fourth, but it's really tight. He's at 142. Varsha is 147, Browning was 161, and Fornaroli's at 178. So it's still got a shot at that. But yeah, exciting to see Crawford. But there's a couple things I wanted to touch on before Chris joins us. I think he's going to try to join us. But one thing is, this season, this session today, this qualifying has been typical of this season where it's just been amazing. There's been so many wonderful things to watch this year. And ESPN is now on a record pace again for ratings, for viewership, in probably their final year, more than likely. But I was looking at the stats, and we had that incredible run from 2018 to 2022, and it kind of leveled off. But again, we're going to have an amazing year, and now it's looking like, I guess, Apple is now in the front runner position for taking that over. But I just thought that was a great story for us to talk about because the way this year has gone.
Yeah. And I must confess now that I was working on a plan for title sponsorship with the Cadillac team. They could be the Speed City Cadillac Formula One team until I found out that they won $180 million per year for that title sponsorship.
Well, yeah, we need to buy the lottery ticket, Bob.
Can we look into that, John?
We can look into that. Yes, we can. All we want. We can continue to keep looking at it. So
it'd be fun to see if we could get an actual response from them.
All right, I'm going to do that. Let's go ahead and take a break. I'll check the bank account, and we'll be back right after these messages. All right, YouTubers, what's happening? Oh, that's funny. Kevin Kelly, when you talk about Apple, I guess he was just responding to mine. I thought he said it before I said it. Andy P. a while ago said 2 hours of qualifying equals 2 Italian GPs. Yeah, it's about right. What was it, 73 minutes, Andy? That's pretty crazy.
Yeah,
pretty
that's
close.
A great stat.
Andy P. says, Bob, that's not in the budget after all those likes.
We don't pay for support yet. But I do need to gas up the buggy, so let's consider it.
All right, what did we not talk about yet? Let's take a look and see. Man, I love watching Formula One before the sun comes up. I don't know about you guys.
It's okay. It's from being horizontal in bed to being vertical with a coffee in my hand. That's the tough section of the day. Once I'm vertical with a coffee in my hand, I'm good to go.
Yeah. Now, I didn't do like Kevin Kelly and Andy P at 3 a.m., but I did one of those mornings. You know how when you wake up, I reached over to get my phone to turn off the alarm and it went off. I mean, literally. Isn't that weird how the human brain does that? I don't know how I did that this morning.
That's a nice skill to have.
What's going on up there, Greenie?
Beautiful day. We just had a JF a junior Formula 4 race, which was fun, which they took live. We're about to go into the first F4 race, and their championship's on the line. Cooper from Austin.
Oh, Cooper Shipman.
Yeah. So if he wins, that will make it 8, which will equal Cameron Dasser's record.
Wow. All right, here we go.
I'm Liam Lawson, and you're listening to Speed City.
Welcome back to the fastest hour in radio, Speed City.
Thank you, Casey, for finding that Liam Lawson bumper. Congratulations to Liam Lawson starting on the second row.
Isn't he good at that? And Casey always has, he must have the buttons on his soundboard with the different drivers' names on it. Just punches up the appropriate name after a day of drama like we had today.
We got to get some more of those this coming USGP. Johnny Green, what do you got?
Well, yeah, no, I was just thinking I got to get some of these I'll try and get Cooper today because obviously that's a good one because he's starting to make a name for himself.
Yeah, he's talking about Cooper Shipman from Austin, Texas, who's on the verge of setting a record set by Kyle Kirkwood of all people. And
no, he's beaten that. That.
Oh yeah, who holds it now? But anyway,
Cameron Dass.
Cameron Dass, that's right. So yeah, some big names that he kind of came out of nowhere. So we'll keep an eye on him. But yes, I'm still trying to flush my system from the adrenaline from that qualifying session because that was so much fun. I mean, yeah, it was crazy 2 hours waiting for it, but those last few laps and from everybody from Verstappen and from Lawson and from Norris who didn't move up, going back to Lawson, the fact that he did that on merit, we thought it was going to be Carlos Sainz on pole, followed by Liam Lawson on the front row, and then when the last session started and when it looked like we were going to get some better laps, I thought, Lawson could easily drop down. No telling where it could end up. And then he jumped back up to third. I was stunned. I loved it. There was so much to be excited about. But we haven't talked much about Isaac Hadjar. I mean, finishing eighth. That was a good one. But, hey, I hear Chris Medland's microphone lighting up. Hey, Mr. Medland, how are you, buddy?
I'm exhausted. I am absolutely shattered, guys. How about you?
I was just saying, Chris, that I just flushed all of the adrenaline out of my system after that session.
Oh, it was incredible. I'm just having a look now. There's still people in the broadcast pen, and the lights have taken over. It's dark here now. That's how late that one got. Max Verstappen's just doing some Dutch media. What a lap that was. I heard you mentioning Isaac Hadjar, though. Very frustrated, I saw at the end of his lap, punching the steering wheel because he didn't bring it home. And it was just a big opportunity for him to stay at the sharp end as well. But there's so many stories, aren't there? I'm sure you've run through most of them already, but there's so many. And it sets tomorrow up brilliantly.
Yeah. Well, what's your favorite, Chris? We've talked about them, but we've probably talked about all of them 2 or 3 times. But what was your favorite?
Very tough to call between. It's good to see Liam Lawson up there. Amazing to see Carlos Sainz pull it together as well, actually. That one I thought was just, he needed that. He's had such a tough season, Carlos, and it's not always worked out for him. So to put it together in such a tricky session, I think it's a big deal. I was actually really pleased to see Yuki Tsunoda having a clean one as well, getting himself in the top 6. I think there's a lot of the guys that have been struggling recently actually dealt with that very, very well, and Yuki was one of them. And he said that the car, the upgrade to the floor, gave him some more confidence when we spoke to him after the session. So he feels that tomorrow he's actually more confident rather than hopeful of being even more strong in the race and moving forwards from there. Got to say, Kimi Antonelli comes under the same bracket as well. Someone else who's under pressure, not just coming here, but during that qualifying session. In Q1, he was nearly gone, and he hung in there and got himself a really good starting position as well. So, yeah, there's a lot of drivers who I think kind of needed it. The problem is I can't see all of them being quite as happy tomorrow because there's no way it's going to be quiet and easy and they all come home in that order, is there?
Well, Jonathan Green had a question for you. What about the wind tomorrow? We talked about how much the wind made a difference today. What about tomorrow? What are we thinking?
Same again, I'm told. Exactly the same again.
Really?
So it could be, it could be very, very tricky. In that case, if I'm trying to see if I can put myself in front of the driver here, which might not go well, but we'll give it a go anyway. The same conditions are on the way. So look, we won't have drivers pushing limits quite to the same extent because it is obviously a race where they're not pushing to 100% into corners, trying to get the lap time out of it like they would be in qualifying. Right. But a gust of wind is what will trip you up. And I don't know how much you guys have been able to see or hear from different team members, but something that James Vowles was explaining on F1 TV at the end of that show was that Alex Albon's crash came as a result of him having a 20 kilometre an hour gust on top of the wind that was already there as he turned in to turn one. And what he was turning in for was the expected understeer that you always get at turn one. So you point at the apex wall, but the car washes out wide. So that's normally not a problem. This gust of wind gave him extra downforce. So the car gripped up and hit the wall. And you can't feel that until you turn in the same way that apparently Oscar Piastri had a tailwind into turn 3 that he couldn't feel until he hit the brakes for that as well. So it's just so tricky. And you get that same problem if we go into the race, that even if you're confident, lap after lap, it's going to be changing.
Yeah, that's what we said, Chris. We said the wind was the story of the qualifying.
Yeah, and it's genuinely the exact same forecast for tomorrow. Same temperatures, same wind speeds, and a chance as well of some wet weather. Now, I don't think we'll get heavy rain, but today there was enough of a sprinkling. Again, Yuki was explaining that it made it very, very greasy, very, very tricky. So, yeah, it's all still to play for. I wouldn't be sleeping soundly if I was any driver other than potentially Max.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up Yuki because we hadn't really touched on Yuki. That was impressive for him and good for him too right now. So
we hardly saw him.
Well, yeah, say again, Bob.
We hardly saw him on the TV broadcast.
Yeah, good point. That's true.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, there was so much going on, wasn't there? It's hard to see everyone. Yeah. I was just trying to follow Liam Lawson down the paddock, actually, but that didn't work out for me. But he has a huge smile on his face. I'm going to head back to the TV compound to see if there's Carlos Sainz still hanging around. But yeah, there's just so many drivers creating drama that for anyone who didn't and serenely progressed, you barely saw them on TV.
I would venture to say, and maybe Jonathan will agree with me because he's done a lot of TV, I think the director, producer went in with a plan. Championships are close, a lot on the line for McLaren. They could clinch the constructors today. Let's focus on these 8 or 9 guys. So we saw nothing of people like Yuki, not a whole lot of the Sauber guys. Instead, they were waiting for one of the big guns to fire, as it were. And, it just didn't happen. And when things started to turn in the wind and the conditions, they had to, ad-lib. Just go find somebody who's on a hot lap. Because I
was going to say, whatever plan you had, it had to go out the window, didn't it?
Oh, yeah, I would say absolutely.
Yeah, I would hate to have been the director trying to follow that.
Right. You could see when they would focus on a car and all of the developing lap times progressively going toward the end of the lap wouldn't be on the guy they were focusing on because they're, just ripping up the plan and trying to pull together, a decent broadcast. And they did a good job. This is such a scenic racetrack with so many different challenges. But still, I kind of detected a certain note of what the hell is going on out there, as Vince Lombardi would say.
Yeah.
I must say it's utterly bizarre out here to be still walking around when it's gone dark and the top 3 qualifiers are they're being lit by spotlights wherever they're trying to do media. So Carlos Sainz is currently talking through his qualifying session at the Skypad. Max Verstappen is still talking to Dutch media. And I don't know if you can hear the wind, but right now I'm nearly being blown over. That's how strong it is. And it's pitch black nearly here. That's how late we ran. That qualifying session was longer than any Grand Prix this season.
Yeah, that's crazy. I heard somebody else say that on Twitter. I saw it. I couldn't believe that. I was like, that's crazy. But Chris, I want to ask you about we're almost out of time, but the last 3 minutes, I was sitting here, we do the Saturday shows from home. So I had all my computer set up and was watching it, just loving it. I'm thinking, where do you guys get to watch it? F1 TV. Are you watching on like a little 12-inch monitor or where are you able to watch it?
Well, for once, actually, this weekend, another reason that I'm not always quickly with you guys is this is where I do the trackside commentary. So the PA system that you guys so well do in Austin, I do here in Baku. So I'm watching it on big screens in the commentary box and out the window. And I'll admit that commentary box was shaking with the weather that we had. But you could also hear the crowd noise. I mean, it's a bigger crowd than I think they've ever had here. There's some extra grandstands. And the fans, because they were sat out there for so long, I think that meant a few more beverages might have been consumed. And then the longer the session went on, the more they reacted to things.
Oh, that never happens in racing.
That's funny. Yeah, that's right, Chris. You guys started at 4 p.m. local time. So, yeah, finished up at 6 o'clock at the qualifying. That's crazy. Well, guys, we any final thoughts? Just got about 30 seconds left. Anybody?
Okay, what happens to McLaren? Do they defend their Constructors' Championship here, or do they go on to Singapore next?
That's a big headline. Chris, you got anything?
I think that doesn't happen. I think they don't get enough of the points, but I think tomorrow is going to be more of the same. So you're going to need to clear a big space in your diary.
Oh, nice. All right. Well, thanks everybody for tuning in. Thanks, Bob Varsha, Chris Medland, Jonathan Green, and our producer in Austin, Casey Johns. Thanks everybody for tuning in, however you did it, on SiriusXM or on YouTube. And of course, tomorrow morning we get started early. We get started at 6 a.m. Eastern time. So get your coffee ready and join us, and we'll talk to you tomorrow morning.